Have you ever stood near a waterfall at night, the mist clinging to your skin, the roar of water drowning out everything else? That is exactly where I want you to imagine yourself, at Montmorency Falls, just outside Quebec City. By day, it's beautiful, majestic, almost serene. But when night falls, the falls take on a different character. Dark, restless, and watching. The locals rarely talk about it, but if you know the stories, you understand why. For decades, people have whispered about a figure that appears in the mist, a woman dressed entirely in white. She wanders the paths along the falls, her hair long and dripping, her face pale as though carved from stone. She doesn't speak, she doesn't move like a normal human. And sometimes she vanishes before your eyes, leaving nothing but the sound of rushing water and a cold chill that seems to reach into your bones. The story goes back more than a century. Some say she was a young woman who loved someone forbidden, a romance that ended in tragedy. Others say she died here in some terrible accident, pushed by fate or betrayed by someone she trusted. No matter the version, the result is the same. Her spirit is trapped at Montmorency Falls, wandering endlessly, searching, waiting, never at peace. It often starts subtly. People report feeling an icy draft, even on warm summer nights. Footsteps echo behind them, yet when they turn, the path is empty. Sometimes the soft sound of a dress brushing against rocks, or a faint sob carried on the wind. And if you're unlucky, you'll see her just a flicker at first, then fully, standing near the edge of the falls, staring at you with hollow eyes. Some say the feeling is worse than fear itself. It's dread. The kind that crawls into your chest, sinks into your lungs, and whispers that you are not alone. I remember my first encounter. I had wandered the trail late, thinking I was alone. The roar of the falls was comforting at first. Then I felt it, a presence closer than the mist itself. I looked up, and there she was. White as snow, hair plastered to her face by the spray. She didn't move toward me, but I felt her attention, sharp and cold, cutting into me like the falls themselves. I blinked and she was gone. But the chill stayed. And that, my friend, is just the beginning. The story of the lady in white begins long before the first visitor ever reported seeing her at Montmorency Falls. Some say she was a young woman, barely 19, full of life and dreams, living in a small village nearby. She had fallen in love with a man she was not supposed to, a forbidden love that angered families and stirred whispers among neighbors. But love, as we all know, can be a dangerous thing, especially when the world is against you. One evening, they planned to meet at the falls. The roar of the water, the mist rising around them, it was supposed to be their secret place. A place where they could be together, away from judgment, away from the world. But that night, something went terribly wrong. Some say she was betrayed, pushed by someone jealous, someone angry, or perhaps someone too cruel to understand what she truly wanted. Others claim it was an accident, a slip, a fall, a misstep in the shadows. Whatever the truth, the young woman fell into the icy waters below. Her body was never found, and that is where the story turns dark. People say her spirit could not leave, tethered by rage, sorrow, and longing. She began to appear along the cliffs and pathways near the falls. At first, it was subtle, a glimpse of white among the mist, a shadow in the corner of someone's eye. But over time, the sightings grew bolder, more frequent, and terrifying. Locals speak of the first few visitors who encountered her. A man walking alone at dusk told of hearing soft crying over the sound of the water. When he turned, she was standing on the edge, pale and dripping, her eyes hollow and fixed on him. He ran, but the sound of her sobs seemed to follow him all the way back to the village. Another tale tells of a young child who saw her from the bridge above. The lady in white lifted her arm, pointing silently at the child, before vanishing into the mist. That child never walked near the falls alone again. Even those who knew the legend warned newcomers not to linger near the edge at night. They said that the lady in white did not always mean harm, but sometimes she did. If she sensed someone too curious, too daring, too careless, she could push them, just as fate had pushed her, into the deadly waters below. And sometimes, they say, she whispers in the wind, calling out for someone to join her in the cold, roaring falls. The story of her death and the first ghost sightings spread quickly. Over the decades, hikers, tourists, and locals alike have told stories of strange shadows, chilling drafts, and sudden drops in temperature. Photographs taken along the cliffside sometimes show a flicker of white that cannot be explained. Footsteps appear where no one has walked, and always the mist carries her presence, soft, cold, and unyielding. The lady in white is not a ghost that vanishes quietly. She lingers, watching, waiting, and remembering the life that was stolen from her. And for those who encounter her, even briefly, the memory of her gaze lingers long after the mist has cleared. If you think the lady in white is just a shadow in a story, let me tell you, she is far more real than you might imagine. Locals and travelers alike have shared encounters so chilling, they could make the bravest shiver in fear. It often begins with something subtle, a sudden drop in temperature, the whisper of a dress over rocks, or a soft sob mingling with the roar of the falls. But for those who witness her fully, the terror is immediate and unforgettable. One evening, a couple hiking along the cliffside stayed too long, enchanted by the glow of the setting sun over the falls. They had been laughing, unaware of the mist curling along the trail. Then from the corner of their eyes, they saw it, a figure in white, pale and dripping, standing at the edge. They froze, hearts pounding, unable to move. Her eyes, hollow and black as midnight, seemed to pierce right through them. The man tried to speak, but no words came. When he blinked, she was gone, yet the cold lingered, and the sound of soft sobbing followed them all the way back to their cabin. Another story comes from a lone photographer. Determined to capture the falls under the moonlight, he wandered to a cliff few dared approach. As he adjusted his camera, a chilling wind swept the area. There, standing just beyond the mist, was the lady in white. He clicked the shutter, and in the photo, she appeared fully pale, wet hair clinging to her face, eyes wide and unblinking. When he looked back in reality, she had vanished. But the terror didn't end there. Over the following nights, he claimed he could feel her presence even in his home, standing silently at the edge of his bed. Children have seen her too. Locals tell of young ones wandering near the path at dusk, suddenly stopping and pointing at the mist. "She's there," they whisper. One boy described her voice as a soft, pleading sound, like someone begging to be heard. When adults looked, nothing remained, just the white mist swirling over the rocks. Even guides and rangers working near the falls at night speak of her. Footsteps that follow behind them, soft sobs that stop when they turn, glimpses of a figure that vanishes when approached. Some have reported being pushed, a gentle nudge at first, growing stronger if they ignore her warning. And those who refuse to heed it, well, they tell stories in hushed tones about how the falls claimed them, or almost did. It is not just sight or sound. Some visitors report a smell cold, damp, like wet stone and rotting leaves, clinging to the air as if announcing her presence. Others feel an invisible touch, fingers brushing their shoulders or tugging at their clothing. And always the mist seems to thicken around her, hiding and revealing her form in the blink of an eye. What makes these encounters even more disturbing is the feeling of being watched. Once you see her, you are never truly alone. Even if she disappears, the sense that she lingers, observing, weighing your courage, or perhaps searching for someone to replace her, is nearly suffocating. The lady in white does not strike without warning. She waits silently, letting fear build, letting her presence sink into your mind. By the time you realize she is there, it is too late to feel safe. The mist carries her, the falls echo her sorrow, and the cold wraps around you like a shroud. Those who have met her up close swear they will never forget the hollow emptiness in her gaze, a gaze that seems to promise death or worse, eternal wandering in the mist. At Montmorency Falls, the line between life and death blurs. The lady in white is not just a memory. She is a presence, relentless and patient, waiting for the next person who dares to linger too long at the edge. Over the years, Montmorency Falls has attracted more than curious hikers and tourists. Paranormal investigators have ventured to the cliffs and pathways, some armed with cameras, audio recorders, and EMF detectors, all hoping to capture proof of the lady in white. And many have returned with evidence so unsettling, it chills the blood even without seeing her in person. Photographs often tell the story first. Long exposures of the mist sometimes reveal a pale, dripping figure that wasn't there moments before. Shadows twist unnaturally in the fog, and in some images, a hollow-eyed face appears staring directly at the lens, unblinking, impossibly close. One investigator, reviewing his photos at home, noticed her form looming behind him in a shot he swears he had taken alone. When he went back to the falls, he could feel the same oppressive cold that had followed him in the image. Audio recordings provide another kind of evidence. Investigators have captured whispers, soft sobs, and faint, pleading voices that vanish as soon as they focus. On multiple nights, EMF detectors spike unexpectedly, sometimes in places with no electricity, no hidden wires, and no logical explanation. Equipment fails mysteriously, cameras shut down, flashlights flicker, and voice recorders cut out as if she were actively interfering with technology. Locals and guides offer their own theories. Some believe the lady in white is trapped between worlds, bound to the falls by the violence and sorrow of her death. Others argue that her presence is a curse, that the betrayal, the fall, and the injustice of her life created a spirit unable to rest. Some paranormal experts suggest she may be an intelligent spirit, aware of the living, choosing her moments to appear, to scare, or perhaps to warn. Whatever the explanation, all agree on one thing: her presence is undeniable. Hikers, photographers, and investigators alike report the same signs: sudden chills, inexplicable noises, and the unmistakable feeling of being watched. Those who linger too long risk attracting her attention, sometimes barely escaping with only the memory of her gaze seared into their minds. The lady in white is not malevolent in the traditional sense. She does not strike blindly or harm without reason. But she is relentless, patient, and bound to Montmorency, falls by a sorrow that never fades. To ignore her, to dismiss her presence, is dangerous. The mist hides her, the roar of the water conceals her movements, and the cliffs give her cover. She waits for those who linger, and she remembers every betrayal, every glance, every step taken near the edge. At Montmorency Falls, the line between legend and reality is blurred. Cameras, audio, and eyewitness accounts may capture fragments, but none can truly contain the horror of standing near the falls when she is watching. And once you feel her attention, you will never forget it, a cold, oppressive presence that follows long after you leave the mist behind. Even now, the lady in white continues to haunt Montmorency Falls. Tourists walk the trails, hear the roar of water, and see only mist and stone. But for those who linger, who dare to step too close to the edge, she is there, watching, waiting, patient as ever. Some nights the mist thickens unnaturally, curling around your feet like living fingers. You hear soft sobbing behind you, yet when you turn, the path is empty. Sometimes glimpses of a white figure appear fleetingly in the fog, vanishing before your eyes. And if you pause too long, if you stare, her hollow eyes will fix on you, and you feel a cold that reaches deep into your bones, a dread you cannot shake. Locals whisper that she does not strike randomly. She chooses the curious, the daring, the careless. They are the ones who might feel a push, a warning, or a lure toward the edge, toward the mist, toward her watery domain. Others have survived encounters, forever marked by the hollow emptiness of her stare, haunted in memory by a presence that will not leave. And so Montmorency Falls remains beautiful by day, majestic and serene. But when the sun dips below the horizon, when the mist rises and the roar of water fills the night, you are never truly alone. Somewhere in the shadows, the lady in white waits. She remembers every betrayal, every life, every glance taken near her domain. If you ever find yourself walking the cliffs at night, heed this warning. Do not linger, do not stare, and whatever you do, do not follow the mist. For at Montmorency Falls, some legends are more than stories, they are real. And some spirits never forgive. I still remember the first time I stood at the mouth of the screaming tunnel. It was late evening and the sky was heavy with dark clouds, the kind that swallow every trace of sunlight. The tunnel itself is short, maybe 70 feet long, just a brick passage cutting through the hillside near Niagara. But even in daylight it feels wrong. That sense of something waiting, something that doesn't belong to this world. Locals tell the story in hushed tones. The tunnel got its name from a girl who supposedly died there long ago, burned alive, or so the legend says, though no one can agree on the details. Some say she was a young bride trapped by cruel fate. Others whisper of an orphan who vanished after being chased by a jealous lover. But no matter the version, the screams that haunt the tunnel are said to be hers, trapped forever, echoing through the brick walls. I didn't go there because I believed in ghosts. I went because I wanted to feel the place for myself, to understand why people avoided it after sunset. The air was cold, heavier than it had any right to be. I took my flashlight, and as I stepped closer, the faint smell of damp earth and decay hit me. The entrance loomed like a black mouth waiting to swallow me whole. I hesitated. The wind whispered through the trees, and for a moment I thought I heard a faint cry, a high, strangled wail that seemed to come from the tunnel itself. I told myself it was the wind, that my mind was playing tricks, but my stomach twisted into knots. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, to run. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. I switched on my flashlight and stepped inside. The brick walls rose high, closing out the world behind me. My footsteps echoed loud and hollow. At first it was quiet, just the sound of my own breathing. But then a faint noise like a whisper or maybe a scream bounced from the far end. My heart started racing. I told myself it was my imagination, yet the air grew colder, pressing in on me from all sides, and the shadows seemed to shift as if watching. Even now I can feel that first moment, standing there in the darkness, the tunnel waiting silently, ready to remind anyone who dares enter that some places are not meant to be walked alone. That night I had no idea that the tunnel had plans of its own, and that the screams were not just stories, they were warnings. I've heard many versions of the story, but the one that sticks with me the most is the girl who perished in the tunnel. They say she was young, no older than 16 or 17, and full of life before tragedy struck. Some say she was a bride-to-be, running to meet her lover, only to be betrayed. Others claim she was a lonely orphan, left to wander the countryside, who stumbled into the tunnel one dark night and never returned. Whatever the truth, the tunnel became her tomb, and her screams her eternal curse. I'll admit, part of me didn't believe it. Ghost stories always sound exaggerated until you feel them yourself. The first time I ventured inside, it was just me and my flashlight, the beam cutting weakly through the blackness. The smell of damp bricks and mold filled the air, heavy and clinging. At first, all I heard were my own footsteps. But then a faint whisper. It was soft, almost desperate, coming from the far end of the tunnel. I froze, straining to hear. The whisper grew into a low wail, and it wasn't like any sound I'd heard before. It was high-pitched, strangled, like someone screaming while trying to hold back tears, or maybe screaming for help that would never come. I took a cautious step forward, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The shadows shifted unnaturally. I swear a figure moved at the edge of my vision, pale and small, vanishing whenever I tried to focus. My heart pounded in my chest, sweat running down my back. I remembered the legend, anyone who heard the screams too clearly risked, losing their mind, being claimed by the tunnel. I told myself it was my imagination, yet the feeling of being watched was undeniable. Then I heard it more clearly, a voice, almost human, whispering my name. I spun, flashlight darting wildly across the walls, but there was no one. The wail rose again, louder, echoing off the bricks, pressing against my chest as if the tunnel itself was alive. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment I could have sworn I saw flames flickering along the walls, not real fire, but an orange glow, moving and dancing like it had a life of its own. I ran. I don't know how fast, only that the cold bricks seemed to stretch endlessly, and the shadows reached for me. When I finally burst out into the night air, gasping and shaking, the tunnel behind me was silent again. Yet the memory of that wail, that desperate cry, stayed with me. Since that night, I've talked to others who dared go inside. Some hear footsteps pacing behind them. Others feel fingers brush against their shoulders. Some claim they saw her, the girl in white, hair charred and clinging to her face, eyes black and endless. And everyone says the same thing. The tunnel remembers, it waits, and if it finds you curious enough, it doesn't let go easily. I realized then that the legend wasn't just a story. It was a warning that the tunnel isn't empty, that the screams are real, that the girl who died there is still there. I'll never forget the night I went back. I told myself I had to face it, that I needed to see if the screams were real or just tricks of the mind. I wasn't alone this time. A friend, equally curious and foolish, followed me. The sky was heavy with clouds, and a chill wrapped around us as we approached the tunnel's mouth. Even in the fading light, it felt darker than it had any right to be. We stepped inside together, our flashlights piercing the black brick walls, rising like the ribs of some long-dead beast. The air smelled of damp earth and something faintly metallic, like blood. Our footsteps echoed louder than I expected, and every sound seemed magnified, swallowed, and returned with a hollow echo. At first it was quiet, almost peaceful. But then the whispers began. Soft, indecipherable, curling through the tunnel like smoke. My friend froze and whispered, "Do you hear that?" I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. The whispers grew into faint cries, high-pitched and desperate, bouncing off the walls. It was like hundreds of voices layered together, all calling, screaming, wailing for help. We pressed forward, our lights flickering. Shadows moved at the edges of our vision. I swear I saw small figures dart across the walls, pale, wet-haired, disappearing before I could focus. At one point, I felt a cold hand brush past my shoulder. I spun, nothing, but the chill stayed, creeping down my spine like icy fingers. Then came the screams. They were not just echoes. They were sharp, piercing, impossible to ignore. The sound rose from the depths of the tunnel, vibrating through the bricks, rattling my bones. My friend screamed, stumbling backward, but the tunnel seemed endless. Every step we took, the darkness stretched, shadows crawling along the walls, twisting, watching. We tried to turn back, but it felt like the tunnel had changed. It was narrower, longer, trapping us in a darkness that pressed against our chests. I heard whispers calling my name again and again. They weren't human, but they sounded like her, the girl from the legend. She was near, waiting, and the air around us pulsed with a presence so heavy, so suffocating, I thought I might pass out. And then the light, not from our flashlights, but a faint orange glow ahead. Flames, no, not fire. Just a flickering, shifting light, moving as if alive. I could feel her presence in it, guiding us, warning us, or taunting us. My friend grabbed my arm and we ran, stumbling over bricks, slipping in the dampness. Behind us, the screams followed, louder, closer, wrapping around us like a living thing. When we finally burst out into the night air, gasping and shaking, the tunnel seemed quiet again, deceptively calm. But the memories stayed. The whispers, the shadows, the cold fingers brushing against me, they haunt me still. And sometimes at night, I swear I hear a faint scream carried on the wind, the girl calling from her prison in the brick and mist. The screaming tunnel is not just a story. It is alive. It waits, and anyone who enters, anyone who dares, will understand that the screams are not just legend. They are real. After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the tunnel. I needed proof, something tangible to show that it wasn't just my imagination. I returned with my camera, my recorder, and a small team of friends who were skeptical but curious. I thought we were prepared. I was wrong. We set up our equipment along the dark brick passage, cameras pointing down its length, recorders running. At first, everything seemed normal. Footsteps echoed off the walls as we moved, our flashlights slicing through the black. But then the subtle signs began, whispers in the recorder, faint and distorted, impossible to understand but undeniably present. My skin prickled and I felt that same suffocating chill I had felt before. I looked through the camera viewfinder and froze. A flicker of white moved at the far end of the tunnel. I lowered the camera to my eyes again, nothing. When I replayed the footage later, a pale figure appeared in several frames, translucent, staring directly at the lens, hair matted and hanging over her face. My friends argued that it must be a trick of light, shadows, or a reflection. But I knew better. That figure was her, the girl who had screamed for decades. One of my friends swore she felt fingers tugging at her jacket, and another reported hearing her name whispered from the walls. EMF detectors in the tunnel spiked repeatedly, sometimes going off for no reason at all. Flashlights flickered, even new batteries failing as if the tunnel itself resisted our attempt to record it. We tried to stay calm, documenting everything we could, but the air grew colder, heavier. The echoes of screams rose around us, bouncing off the bricks, wrapping us in a sound so unnatural it felt alive. Shadows shifted and twisted as though they had minds of their own. I could feel her presence, circling, patient, waiting for someone to make a mistake. By the time we decided to leave, every one of us was shaking. None of us spoke, our breaths loud in the suffocating silence as we exited into the night. Outside, the wind was calm, the tunnel silent once again. But the recordings we took told a different story. Whispers, fleeting figures, inexplicable cold spots, proof that the tunnel is not empty, that the screams are real, and that the girl's presence is relentless. No one who enters the screaming tunnel walks away unchanged. Even after leaving, I feel her there sometimes, a shadow at the corner of my eye, a whisper in the wind. She reminds me that the tunnel is alive, that she waits for those foolish enough to enter, and that some screams never fade. I swore I wouldn't go back, but curiosity has a way of gnawing at you, and one night, drawn by the stories and my own obsession, I found myself standing at the tunnel's mouth again. The air was cold, unnaturally so, and the mist clung to my clothes like wet fingers. I stepped inside, flashlight trembling in my hand. The bricks loomed around me, dark and oppressive. At first, silent. Then it started, a faint whisper almost inaudible at first, curling along the walls. I froze, my heart raced. The whisper grew into a high, strangled wail, unmistakably human, unbearably desperate. I felt it before I saw it. A cold presence brushing against my shoulder, circling me, pressing closer. Shadows moved at the edges of my vision, twisting unnaturally. I tried to run, but my feet felt like they were sinking into the bricks, rooted to the tunnel. And then I saw her, the girl in white, hair plastered to her face, eyes hollow and black, staring at me from the far end. She didn't move at first. Just what? And then the screams exploded, echoing, writhing, surrounding me, filling my head. I stumbled backward, tripping over the uneven bricks, gasping for air. Her wail pierced every corner of the tunnel, and in that moment I understood. She wasn't just a story. She wasn't just a shadow. She was trapped, angry, relentless. And she wanted me to remember. When I finally stumbled out into the night, the cold lingered, a reminder that she had not left me. Even now, months later, I hear faint whispers when I'm alone, echoes of that desperate scream. The screaming tunnel is not empty. It never has been. And anyone foolish enough to enter will understand what I do. Some places are alive with horror, and some screams never stop. Have you ever stood somewhere that feels alive, even when no one is around? The Halifax Citadel is one of those places. Perched high on a hill overlooking the busy streets and harbor of Halifax, Nova Scotia, the fortress commands attention. Its thick stone walls, towering ramparts, and historic cannons are a testament to centuries of history. Built in the mid-1700s to protect the city, the Citadel has seen soldiers march, prisoners confined, and battles waged. By day, it is a majestic monument, drawing tourists from around the world. But by night, it tells a very different story. The Citadel is said to be one of Canada's most haunted locations. Staff and visitors have reported shadows moving in empty hallways, whispers echoing through the stone corridors, and cold drafts that appear out of nowhere. Some say it is the soldiers who trained here, still following routines long after death. Others claim it is the prisoners, forever trapped in the dungeons where life was harsh and unforgiving. Walking through the Citadel, it is easy to imagine history coming alive. The barracks, once filled with rows of beds, now stand silent. Yet people report seeing figures in old military uniforms pacing the hallways, as if inspecting the rooms or standing at attention. Visitors describe hearing footsteps echo across stone floors, even when the halls are empty. A night watchman once claimed to see a young soldier pause on a landing, staring into the darkness before vanishing entirely. And then there are the dungeons. The lower levels of the Citadel were used to house prisoners in cramped, cold cells. Here the stories are darker. People have reported hearing muffled cries, chains rattling, and whispers that seem to come from the walls themselves. Some have described faint shapes moving in the shadows, figures too fleeting to be caught on camera, yet impossible to dismiss. Even those who do not believe in ghosts admit that the Citadel has a presence. There is something in the air, heavy, cold, and almost watchful. Some call it the weight of history. Others say it is something more, something that refuses to leave. And so the Halifax Citadel stands. A fortress, a monument, and perhaps a home for spirits. Those who visit may see only stone and history. But if you pay attention, if you're quiet, you might notice something else, a shadow moving just out of the corner of your eye, a soft footstep where none should be, or the faint whisper of a voice from long ago. The story of the Citadel's ghosts is only just beginning. After the sun sets over Halifax, the Citadel transforms. What was a bustling tourist site becomes quiet, empty, and strangely alive. Staff working late have often told stories that make even the most skeptical visitors pause. Shadows appear where none should exist. Footsteps echo across stone floors, yet when you turn, the hallway is empty. And sometimes the air grows inexplicably cold, as though a presence is brushing past you. The most common reports come from the barracks. These long, narrow rooms, once filled with rows of soldiers' beds, now stand silent. Yet witnesses insist they see figures moving in old military uniforms, pacing as if performing their nightly duties. Some claim these soldiers appear faint, almost translucent, yet they move with purpose. A security guard described one night how he saw a young soldier standing at attention near a door. When he called out, the figure vanished instantly, leaving behind only the lingering chill of cold stone. Footsteps are another recurring phenomenon. Staff and visitors hear the tap-tap of boots echoing through hallways. Often, the sounds seem to come from above or below, from staircases where no one is present. One visitor recounted walking toward the main hall, only to hear a rhythmic march behind her. She turned quickly, expecting to see a group of reenactors or tourists. Nothing, but the footsteps continued for a few more seconds before fading completely. Then there are the whispers. Soft, almost imperceptible, yet unmistakable. Words that cannot be made out, murmurs that seem to come from the very walls themselves. Some claim to hear commands being given, orders repeated in a voice that carries authority, but also sadness. Others hear laughter, quiet and hollow, as if from a soldier remembering moments long gone. It is not only the night staff who experience these occurrences. Visitors, especially those walking the Citadel after closing hours, report sudden sensations of being watched. Some feel a presence walking beside them. Others describe catching glimpses of movement in their peripheral vision, a figure standing silently at the top of a staircase, or a shadow moving across the barracks floor. Cameras occasionally capture odd anomalies, streaks of light, unexplained blurs, or faint outlines that do not correspond to any living person. Even the daytime can bring eerie encounters. During quiet hours, a tour guide once reported seeing a soldier appear at the far end of a hall. When he blinked, the figure was gone. And yet, for several minutes afterward, the temperature dropped sharply, and the faint scent of old leather, as if from boots or belts, lingered in the air. Some believe these ghosts are simply echoes of the past, repeating routines they performed centuries ago. Others think they are aware, intelligent spirits, silently observing the living and retracing the lives they once had. Whatever the explanation, one thing is certain: the soldiers of the Halifax Citadel have never truly left. Visitors who encounter them often describe fear at first, followed by fascination. There is a strange beauty in these apparitions, a reminder of the lives that shaped the fortress and the history that continues to resonate through its walls. And for those willing to listen carefully, the echoes of the past speak clearly, the footsteps, the whispers, the watchful eyes of soldiers who remain bound to their post forever. Beneath the towering walls of the Halifax Citadel lie the dungeons, dark, cramped, and cold. These lower levels were used to house prisoners, men who had fallen afoul of military law or civilian authorities. Life here was hard. Cells were small, barely large enough to sit or lie down, and warmth was scarce. Many prisoners were left in isolation, their cries echoing through the stone corridors. Even today, those same corridors seem to hold the memory of suffering. Visitors and staff alike have reported the strongest paranormal activity in the dungeons. The air is said to grow oppressively cold, far colder than anywhere else in the city. Some have felt unseen hands brush their shoulders or tug at their clothing. Whispered voices call from empty cells, and chains are sometimes heard rattling as if moved by invisible hands. One visitor recounted a particularly chilling experience. She had been exploring the lower levels with a small tour group when she suddenly felt a presence behind her. She turned, expecting to see another member of the group, but there was no one. The sound of chains rattling filled the corridor, followed by a faint whispering that she could not understand. Terrified, she fled the dungeon, only to hear footsteps behind her, heavy, deliberate, and echoing exactly as though someone were running to catch up. Staff who work overnight shifts also share unsettling accounts. A night watchman once claimed that while performing his rounds, he saw a figure emerge from one of the dungeon cells. It was a man in ragged clothing, eyes hollow and staring directly at him. Before the guard could react, the figure vanished into the shadows, leaving only the chill of the stone floor lingering in the air. But the dungeons are not haunted by prisoners alone. Some reports speak of a young soldier who died during training, perhaps forgotten by history. Witnesses describe seeing him sitting quietly on a bench, staring out into the hall. Others see him pacing along the ramparts, his uniform pale and faded, his face solemn. He does not interact, yet his presence is undeniable, a silent reminder of a life cut short. Even cameras and recording equipment capture unusual phenomena. Paranormal investigators have reported blurred figures, streaks of light, and anomalies in footage taken in the dungeons. Electronic devices sometimes malfunction without explanation. Cameras turn off, flashlights flicker, and recorders pick up faint voices that cannot be explained. EVPs collected over multiple nights contain whispers, commands, and calls, seemingly from soldiers or prisoners long gone. For many, the experience is a mixture of fear and fascination. The Citadel's dungeons are not just a historical site, they are a living monument to the past. The walls have absorbed centuries of human emotion, discipline, fear, loneliness, and grief. Those who encounter these presences often describe feeling the weight of history pressing down, a reminder that these were once real people who lived, suffered, and died here. And yet, the spirits do not always act with malice. Some visitors feel a sense of connection, an awareness that these apparitions are reminders rather than threats. The soldiers and prisoners of the Citadel may be bound to the walls, but they also carry their stories, their histories, and their memories. The Halifax Citadel is more than a fortress. It is a place where time overlaps, where past and present coexist, and where those who never left continue to make their presence known. Walk the dungeons at night and you might hear the echo of footsteps, the clinking of chains, or a whisper calling your name. The ghosts of the Citadel are not bound by anger or hatred. They are bound by memory, the memory of duty, punishment, and the fragility of life. And as long as their stories are remembered, they will remain, watching silently from the shadows, waiting for someone to notice that history never truly dies. Over the years, the Halifax Citadel has attracted more than just tourists and history enthusiasts. Paranormal investigators, ghost hunters, and curious skeptics have all ventured into the fortress, hoping to capture evidence of its restless spirits. And many have returned with stories that defy explanation. Investigators often set up cameras in the barracks and dungeons. On multiple occasions, security footage has captured translucent figures, moving silently through hallways, disappearing into walls, or vanishing mid-step. Some images reveal shadows that seem to linger, unmoving, even as the investigators move around them. In certain instances, the figures appear uniformed, soldiers from a time long past, marching, patrolling, or standing at attention as though still fulfilling their duties. EVPs, or electronic voice phenomena, are another form of evidence frequently reported. In dozens of sessions, investigators have captured whispers, commands, and even names, soft, faint, and impossible to identify without playback equipment. Some voices call out in urgency, some in sorrow, and some are merely murmurs that vanish when approached. One investigator described hearing a faint, almost desperate, "Stay here," echoing through the stone hallways, though no one else was present. Visitors have also contributed to the Citadel's eerie reputation. Photographs often show anomalies, blurs, streaks of light, and faint outlines of figures that cannot be explained. One tourist exploring the dungeons captured an image of what appeared to be a prisoner sitting on a bench, yet no one was there at the time. The same photo revealed a subtle glow near the ceiling, as if a presence was observing the room from above. Why do the spirits remain? Theories abound. Some believe these are residual hauntings, echoes of events long past, imprinted into the stone and mortar. The soldiers may be reliving their routines, the prisoners their suffering. Others argue the spirits are intelligent, aware of the living, and continuing their existence in a form that intersects with ours. Some suggest the Citadel's long history, filled with intense emotions and trauma, has anchored these entities, binding them to the location indefinitely. Whatever the explanation, one truth remains: the presence of the past is tangible. Visitors often describe a heavy, watchful air, a chill that descends without warning, or the sensation of unseen eyes following them. For many, the Citadel is not just a monument to history. It is a reminder that life, death, and memory can leave echoes that outlast even stone walls. And so the fortress endures, a living testament to the people who built it, guarded it, and even perished within its walls. The ghosts of Halifax Citadel are not gone. They are here, watching, remembering, and waiting. Even today, the Halifax Citadel stands as a monument to history. Tourists walk its ramparts, gaze at the cannons, and admire the views of the bustling city below. But for those who pay attention, there is more than stone and history here. There is a presence that lingers, silent yet impossible to ignore. Visitors report sudden chills, shadows darting just beyond their vision, and the unmistakable sound of footsteps in empty halls. Some feel a soft brush against their shoulders, or the weight of someone standing close, yet no one is there. Others hear faint whispers, commands, names, or cries that vanish as soon as they focus on the sound. The Citadel's ghosts are not violent. They do not seek to harm. Instead, they remind us of lives lived, orders followed, and suffering endured. Soldiers who marched and drilled, prisoners who suffered in silence, and young men and women who never returned from duty, all leave traces of their existence, echoes that continue to ripple through the fortress. For those willing to notice, it is impossible not to feel their presence. A figure pacing the hallway, a shadow at the top of the stairs, or a chill in the air, small signs that history has not ended. The past and present coexist, intertwined, and the stories of the Citadel's inhabitants refuse to be forgotten. So if you find yourself walking the Citadel after dark, remember to pause. Listen, what? You may see a soldier standing silently at attention, a prisoner lingering in the shadows, or feel the brush of a presence that has not left in centuries. Because at the Halifax Citadel, history never truly dies. And some shadows never leave. In the quiet town of Quesnel in British Columbia, there is a museum that holds history within its walls. From the outside, it looks ordinary. Its red brick exterior, its glass windows, its rows of old displays give no sign of what lies inside. But among the artifacts and relics of Canadian history, one item has drawn more attention than any other. It is not a weapon of war, nor a priceless piece of art, nor even a rare historical document. No, the object that has made this museum famous is something far more innocent in appearance and far more unsettling in spirit. It is a doll, a porcelain-faced doll with cracks along its cheeks, faded clothing that has lost its color with time, and wide glassy eyes that seem to look directly into your soul. Her name is Mandy. At first glance, Mandy appears to be nothing more than an antique toy, a relic of the past meant to comfort a child. But to those who have stood in front of her, to those who have taken her home, and to those who have worked near her, she is something else entirely. Mandy is not just an artifact. She is an experience that chills the room, unsettles the mind, and leaves behind a lingering sense of dread. The story of Mandy begins in the early 1990s. A woman living in Quesnel grew deeply disturbed by a possession she kept in her home. It was Mandy the doll. She said that no matter where she placed the doll, she felt uneasy. At night, she would hear strange noises coming from the basement where Mandy was kept. At first, it was faint, a soft sound like the wind rattling the old boards of the house. But soon the noise grew louder, clearer, and more human. It was the sound of crying. Not just any crying, but the heartbreaking cry of an infant. Long drawn out and echoing through the dark hours of the night. Night after night, the woman heard it. Sometimes it would wake her from sleep. Sometimes it would follow her as she tried to go about her evening. But always it seemed to come from the place where Mandy was stored. She tried to ignore it. She tried to explain it away as the creaking of an old home or her imagination playing tricks. But the more she tried to dismiss it, the stronger the feeling became. The doll was wrong. It carried something with it. Something that should not have been in her house. Finally, the woman could take no more. She decided to get rid of Mandy, but she did not throw her away. Instead, she brought the doll to the Quesnel and District Museum in 1991. The staff accepted the donation as they would any other. They placed Mandy in the conservation lab, examined her clothing and porcelain, and prepared to add her to their collection. At the time, no one suspected the doll would become the most famous object in the entire building. But within days of Mandy's arrival, strange things began to happen. The conservation lab, normally a quiet and orderly space, was found in complete disarray. Papers were scattered across the floor. Books had fallen from the shelves. Small objects were misplaced as if they had been hurled in a sudden tantrum. The first time it happened, the staff blamed clumsiness. The second time, they suspected a prank. But when it continued again and again, they grew uneasy. One night, a staff member placed a small stuffed toy lamb inside Mandy's display case. It was meant to soften her unsettling appearance, to make her seem less frightening to visitors. The next morning, when the museum opened, the lamb was no longer in the case. Instead, it lay face down on the floor outside. The glass display was still locked. The alarm system had not been triggered. There was no sign of tampering. And yet the lamb had moved. After that, the staff began to see Mandy differently. They were no longer handling a simple toy. They were dealing with something that seemed to possess a will of its own. Over the months that followed, more and more reports came in. Visitors began to complain that Mandy's eyes seemed to follow them as they walked past. Some said they felt a wave of cold air when they stood near her case. Others described an overwhelming sense of sadness when they looked at her face, as though the doll carried the grief of a lost child. Children in particular reacted strongly. Parents said their kids would burst into tears when they came close to Mandy. Some refused to go near her at all, pulling away and pointing at the doll with wide, frightened eyes. Electronics malfunctioned in her presence. Cameras failed to work. Batteries drained almost instantly when someone tried to photograph her. Pictures that did succeed often showed strange distortions, streaks of light, or shadows that no one remembered seeing. And then came the dreams. Several visitors reported having vivid nightmares after seeing Mandy. They dreamed of a little girl crying, or of being locked in a room with the doll watching from the corner. In some dreams, Mandy moved on her own. One woman claimed she saw the doll crawl across the floor, its porcelain face cracking open as it whispered something she could not understand. She woke up screaming and refused to ever return to the museum. The stories spread quickly. Soon, Mandy was no longer just a local curiosity. She became a legend. In 1999, Mandy's fame reached national attention when she appeared on the Montel Williams show. A psychic who examined the doll claimed that she carried the grief of children who had once owned her. The psychic said the doll had absorbed their sorrow, their pain, and their suffering, and now projected it into the world around her. The episode made Mandy a household name among paranormal enthusiasts. People traveled from across North America to see her. The Quesnel Museum, once a quiet place of local history, found itself flooded with visitors eager to look into the eyes of the haunted doll. Over the years, Mandy became the star attraction. Paranormal investigators studied her. Psychics tried to communicate with her. Skeptics dismissed the stories as superstition. But no one could deny that she inspired fear, unlike anything else in the building. Why do dolls frighten us so deeply? Psychologists suggest that dolls occupy the uncanny valley, the space between human and inhuman. They look like us, but they are not alive. Their glass eyes mimic life, but they never blink. Their frozen faces appear familiar, but they never change. This almost human quality unsettles the mind, triggering an instinctive reaction of fear. Dolls also represent innocence. They are supposed to comfort children, to be symbols of play and safety. When a doll instead becomes a source of dread, it feels like a betrayal of innocence itself. It suggests that something pure has been corrupted, twisted into something unnatural. Mandy embodies this perfectly. She is cracked, broken, yet strangely lifelike. She looks like a child's toy, but she radiates something darker. To look at her is to see the innocence of childhood replaced with an echo of sorrow and fear. Some believe Mandy is haunted by the spirit of a child who died tragically. Others think she is cursed, carrying with her a history of grief from whoever once owned her. Skeptics argue that the stories are fueled by imagination, that once someone hears the doll is haunted, their mind fills in the rest. But how does one explain the locked case that opened on its own? How does one explain the crying in the night, the drained batteries, the nightmares that follow so many who visit her? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between imagination and reality. Perhaps Mandy is not haunted by a single spirit, but instead carries the energy of all the sorrow projected onto her over the years. Or perhaps she is simply waiting, her cracked face hiding a story that has yet to be told. Today, Mandy remains in her glass case at the Quesnel and District Museum. Visitors still line up to see her, some with excitement, others with hesitation. Most leave with nothing more than a story to tell. But some leave with something more. A chill that lingers. A dream they cannot shake. A memory of those glassy eyes staring into their soul. She does not move. She does not speak. She sits silently, waiting. But those who know her story understand that Mandy is more than porcelain and cloth. She is a mystery, a haunting, a reminder that even the most innocent of objects can carry with them a darkness that defies explanation. And so the question remains. When you stand before her, when you look into those cracked, unblinking eyes, do you believe you are only looking at a doll, or are you staring into something else, something that watches you back? Something that may follow you long after you leave the museum. Mandy is waiting. Have you ever stood before a place that felt more like a dream than reality? That is exactly what the Banff Springs Hotel looks like. Tucked deep within the Canadian Rockies of Alberta, the hotel rises from the forest like a stone castle. Towering peaks surround it. Pine trees stretch endlessly, and the crisp air carries the scent of snow even in summer. For more than a century, people from around the world have come here to celebrate, to vacation, and to experience the beauty of the Rockies in luxury. But if you've heard the whispers, you'll know this hotel carries something more than beauty. Beneath the chandeliers and behind the velvet drapes, there are shadows. And none of those shadows are more famous or more tragic than the spirit of the bride. They say she was young, beautiful, and full of joy. Her wedding day was the happiest day of her life, and she chose the Banff Springs Hotel for its grand setting. Imagine the scene. a white gown trailing across polished marble floors, a ballroom filled with music and laughter, flowers arranged in every corner, and a groom waiting proudly for his beloved. The day was perfect. At least it should have been. But sometimes perfection shatters in an instant, and what begins as joy can twist into a story that lingers for decades. This bride never got to live her happily ever after. She never danced her first dance as a wife, nor cut the wedding cake, nor looked into her husband's eyes as the guests cheered. Instead, her story ended on that very day. Ended with a fall. Ended with silence. And yet she never truly left the Banff Springs Hotel. Her spirit is still there. Some say she waits on the staircase, forever caught in that final moment. Others claim she dances alone in the ballroom, her gown swaying, her veil flowing, her figure barely visible in the dim light. The Banff Springs Bride is no ordinary ghost story. She is a reminder that even in the most beautiful places, tragedy can leave a mark. And if you listen closely, maybe you'll hear the sound of her soft footsteps echoing through the halls. Picture this. The grand staircase of the Banff Springs Hotel gleamed beneath the glow of chandeliers. The guests dressed in their finest gathered below, their voices buzzing with laughter and excitement. The orchestra played soft music, filling the air with elegance. All eyes turned as the bride appeared, her white gown trailing behind her, veil shimmering in the golden light. She was radiant, glowing with anticipation, her heart racing as she prepared to descend toward her waiting groom. This was the moment she had dreamed of. The beginning of her life as a wife, as a partner, as the center of this joyous day. The room held its breath as she began her walk down the staircase. But then something went horribly wrong. The details of what happened next change, depending on who tells the story. Some versions say her long veil brushed against one of the candelabras that lined the staircase. The flame caught the delicate fabric, and in seconds the fire spread. Panic swept through the guests as the bride shrieked, her gown alight. In her desperate attempt to escape the flames, she stumbled, her feet tangling in her dress. She fell down the staircase, her head striking the cold stone floor with a sickening crack. Other versions tell it differently. They say no fire was involved at all. Instead, the bride's slipper caught on the hem of her gown, tripping her. She fell suddenly, violently, her body tumbling down the grand staircase as guests screamed in horror. By the time she reached the bottom, her body lay motionless, her life gone in an instant. Whether by flame or by fall, the truth is the same. The bride's perfect day ended in tragedy. The orchestra fell silent. The laughter and music that had filled the ballroom moments before were replaced by chaos and fear. The groom rushed to her side, helpless, devastated, his bride gone before their marriage even began. Guests wept, some unable to look, others frozen by shock. The celebration turned into mourning in the blink of an eye. The hotel staff tried desperately to restore order, to comfort the groom, to calm the horrified guests. But there was no undoing what had been done. A young woman had lost her life in the most cruel and unexpected way. The story spread quickly, whispered among the townsfolk, and carried through the Rockies. Some said the hotel tried to keep it quiet, not wanting such a tragedy tied to its grand reputation. But secrets have a way of slipping through cracks, and soon the tale of the bride's death became part of the hotel's history. Now most wedding stories end with the bride and groom leaving hand in hand, ready to begin their new life together. But this story took a different path. Instead of a happy ending, it left behind unanswered questions, grief, and a presence that, many believe, never left the Banff Springs Hotel. Because soon after her death, strange things began to happen. Guests reported hearing faint music in the ballroom when it was empty. Staff swore they saw a figure in white on the staircase late at night. And always the figure moved silently, gracefully, like a bride reliving her final steps again and again. The Banff Springs Bride may have lost her life on that staircase, but her story was only just beginning. They say death does not always mean the end. Sometimes when a life is cut short in shock or sorrow, the spirit lingers, unable to move on. That is what many believe happened to the bride of the Banff Springs Hotel. It began quietly with whispers among the staff. A night watchman would swear he saw something move on the grand staircase, even though the hotel was empty. A maid cleaning the ballroom late at night said she felt as if she were being watched. At first, they brushed it off. Working in a hotel that big, with long halls and dim corners, it was easy for the mind to play tricks. But soon, the reports grew more chilling. Guests began to claim they saw her. A woman in white descending the staircase in silence, her face hidden beneath a flowing veil. Some said she vanished halfway down, fading into thin air before their very eyes. Others swore they saw her reach the bottom, pause for a moment, and then disappear as they blinked. In the ballroom, she was seen gliding across the polished floor, her gown swaying as if she were locked in a dance with a partner no one else could see. The music was gone, the guests were gone, but she moved as though the wedding continued on in another world, a world that overlapped with ours for only a moment. Some guests felt a sudden chill when she appeared. Others described the faint smell of smoke, as though her veil still burned from that terrible day. A few even claimed to hear the faint crackle of fire, though no flames were anywhere to be seen. There are countless stories. One honeymooning couple said they awoke to find their room colder than ice, though the heating was on. When they looked toward the corner, they saw a pale figure standing in silence. A woman in a gown, veil covering her face. She did not move. She did not speak. And then as suddenly as she appeared, she was gone. A hotel porter once told of carrying luggage down the staircase for a guest. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the bride, walking just a few steps ahead of him. When he turned fully to look, she was no longer there. But the air around him remained icy cold, so cold his breath turned white. Some encounters were more sorrowful than frightening. Guests reported hearing soft sobs in the middle of the night, echoing through the halls near the bridal suite. The sound of a young woman weeping, as if mourning the life she lost. The cries never lasted long, but they left behind a deep sadness in anyone who heard them. Not everyone believed, of course. Skeptics claimed it was tricks of the mind, fueled by the legend itself. If you know the story of the bride, your brain may fill in the rest when you see a shadow on the stairs or feel a draft in the ballroom. But even skeptics struggle to explain the photographs. Dozens of tourists over the years have tried to capture the bride on camera. Many photos show nothing unusual, but some reveal strange blurs, streaks of light, or faint outlines of a woman where no one was standing. One photograph in particular shows a clear figure in white at the top of the staircase. The guests swore the stairs were empty when they pressed the button. And then there are the dreams. Guests who stayed at the Banff Springs often reported vivid nightmares after hearing her story or seeing her in the halls. Dreams of tumbling downstairs, of fire consuming their clothes, of standing in a ballroom alone as unseen hands pushed them to dance. The dreams would fade when they left the hotel, but the memories stayed with them forever. The legend grew with each passing year. Travelers came from far and wide, not just to see the beauty of the Rockies, but to catch a glimpse of the Banff Springs bride. Paranormal investigators set up cameras and recorders, hoping to capture her presence. Psychics claimed they could feel her sorrow in the air, thick and heavy, impossible to ignore. Through it all, the story remained the same. She was not a spirit of anger, not a ghost who sought to harm. She was sorrow frozen in time. A bride who never got to finish her wedding day, reliving it in fragments, trapped between the joy she once felt and the tragedy that ended it all. And whether you believe in ghosts or not, when you stand in that ballroom or look up at that staircase, it's hard not to feel a chill crawl up your spine. Because sometimes the past refuses to stay silent. Sometimes the dead refuse to leave. And at the Banff Springs Hotel, the bride still walks. Every ghost story raises a question. Why? Why would a spirit remain in this world instead of moving on? Why would the bride of Banff Springs still walk those halls, still descend that staircase, still appear in the ballroom as if her wedding never ended? There are many theories, each one offering its own explanation. Some say her death was so sudden, so shocking, that her spirit never realized she was gone. One moment she was filled with joy, the next she was falling or burning or lying still on the cold floor. For a soul caught in that instant, perhaps the world never quite shifted. Perhaps she still believes she has a wedding to finish. Others believe she lingers because of love. She never got to begin her life with her husband, never shared the years of happiness she dreamed of. That longing, that unfinished story, may have tied her to the hotel. Her presence is not one of rage or vengeance, but of yearning, a heart that cannot rest because it never got the chance to love as it should have. There is another theory, darker still. Some say places absorb energy, especially where tragedy strikes. The Banff Springs Hotel has stood for more than a century, its walls heavy with history. When the bride fell, her sorrow may have soaked into the very stones of the staircase and the polished floor of the ballroom. What people see may not be her spirit at all, but an echo of her death, replaying again and again like a memory carved into the building itself. Paranormal investigators often debate whether she is an intelligent spirit, aware of the living, aware of being watched, or a residual haunting, doomed to repeat her final moments for eternity. Guests who say she locks eyes with them swear she knows they are there. Others insist she pays no attention, gliding past as though trapped in her own world, untouched by ours. But perhaps the most compelling reason is simpler. Stories themselves give her power. Every time someone whispers about the Banff Springs Bride, every time a visitor shares their eerie encounter, every time a new guest walks those halls with her legend in mind, it keeps her alive. Memory fuels haunting, and the Banff Springs Bride has become unforgettable. What makes her story so chilling is not violence, not cruelty, but tragedy. She is a reminder of how fragile joy can be, how a single misstep can turn the happiest day into one of sorrow. And in a hotel built to celebrate life, love, and luxury, she stands as a shadow, proof that no amount of beauty can erase pain. So when people ask, why is she still here? The answer might be that she simply cannot leave. Or maybe she refuses to. If you visit the Banff Springs Hotel today, you'll find no shortage of beauty. The grand halls still gleam with chandeliers, the mountain views are breathtaking, and the ballroom still echoes with the sound of music and laughter during celebrations. Couples still marry there, and guests still descend the staircase with pride. But for some, that beauty is accompanied by something else. A chill that comes without warning. A shadow caught in the corner of the eye. A glimpse of white silk at the edge of the ballroom. The bride is still there. They say she walks the staircase late at night, her veil flowing gently, her steps silent. They say she dances in the ballroom when the lights are low, gliding gracefully, as though the celebration never ended. Some claim she passes by like a whisper, while others say she stops to watch, her presence heavy, her sorrow unmistakable. But no matter how she appears, she never speaks. She never cries out. She simply moves, caught between life and death, between joy and tragedy, between memory and eternity. And maybe that is the most haunting part of all. She is not a ghost that seeks revenge or harm. She is a reminder, a symbol of a moment lost, a day that should have been perfect, forever shattered. So the next time you walk those halls or stand at the top of the grand staircase, remember her. Look closely into the shadows, listen to the silence, and ask yourself, if you hear the faint echo of music, if you see the shimmer of a gown, if you feel that cold air brush your skin, will you believe it's just your imagination? Or will you realize the Banff Springs Bride is dancing still?